Still says we're off the air, so might be one of those days. All right, here we go. This Hangout is live, so yes, we're live now. Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Today is July 24th. You're hanging out with my community manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. You could hang out with us at our Twitter chat as well as watch the show live here. Our Twitter chat is #CMGR Hangout. So, hey, what's up to everybody watching over there? Thanks for hanging out with us again each Friday. So if you love what you're seeing and you want to join us someday, please head over to our website at www.mycmgr.com. Click on the Participate button. Fill out that form. It's really your ideas and your connections and you that make this show happen every Friday. This is your community. We just help keep it all together. All right, so what do we have for you this week? Well, our topic is helping members adapt to technology. And you might be wondering, what does that mean? Well, part of onboarding new members and helping them feel welcome is also helping them to adapt to new technology. This could be the platform you're running your community on. It could be your product. It could be your service. So we got a whole lot of questions we're going to answer today. And let's just get right to it. Special shout-outs to Sarah and Carrie on the Twitters for helping keep the fort down over there. And with that, we'll just start with Tamara and let everyone introduce themselves.
Thank you very much. I appreciate getting the chance to come here. I'm the owner of the LinkedIn group EHS Professionals, and we'd really love to move our community into using new technology. And so that's why I'm appreciating joining you today so I can learn more about how to do this.
Excellent.
Hey everyone, I am Sherry Rohde and I am the community manager at Magento, which is an open source e-commerce platform, as well as co-produce CMGR Hangout here with Dom and Brew.
Hey, I'm Rue. I'm a freelance community manager here in New York. I've been working with a lot of small businesses, specifically in the real estate industry, to bring online community to physical community. And right now I'm working with a startup called Better, which is building web publishing software that sort of is designed for people who think about collaboration and community as part of the infrastructure of the internet.
Hey everybody, I am Dom. I am a community manager with BTC Revolutions, as well as a co-producer here with Sherry and Brew. I'm coming in from Alabama today in one of my many other stops along my nomadic apparent lifestyle, and I'm really stoked to be here. The questions are really good, and I think this panel is going to really knock it out of the park. So I'm super stoked. On to you, David.
Hey, I'm David Dewald, Community Manager at Bit9 and Carbon Black. I've just been doing it forever.
Awesome. Well, hey, everybody. I am Brew, the Director of Awesome at BTC Revolutions and co-producer here with Dom and Sherry. Let's just jump into our first question. Which is, let's see, where is the, oh, here we go. How do you identify skill barriers within your community? So skill barriers. What are your thoughts? How do we identify the skill barriers?
Can I go?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, by the way, first, real quick to level set everything here. This is like we're having a conversation over beers. So at any point, just jump in. You can jump over people. You can argue. Just go ahead and talk when you want to talk. Don't be afraid. So go ahead.
The first thing I do is some self-reflection. As I look at, like, when I first started using technology, what was the barriers that I was facing? And then I try to think about that when I'm going to be bringing it to the community.
I recently tried out it was like a 10-week user research event series that I called a Chai and Samosa Chat, where I would reach out to our target community, which in this case was mainly community organizers and nonprofit staff members, and I would host them in groups of about like 5, and have like a brainstorm slash like fest about how we use technology and existing software out there, which was really helpful to what we're researching at Better, which is understanding, engaging where people are at in terms of using software and websites more strategically for collaboration. And it was cool. People wanted to come because of the chai and samosas. It turned into like a thing.
That sounds awesome.
I think that's a really important point to actually go in there and do some research. A lot of times you can kind of figure out where some of the barriers with your current technology are by looking through analytics and whatnot too, and see where they're kind of dropping off. Or for example, we recently identified just the fact that people were replying to notifications from our forums rather than following the link through to the forums and replying there. And in that case, that was actually a barrier, since it wasn't really clear to them. That was a barrier that we could even address simply by enabling the ability to reply to the forum post via email. So now when they reply, instead of sending their response into like this bucket somewhere, it's actually going back to the forums, which helps generate that.
Well, what about just asking? Is that feasible? I mean, just kind of throwing out to your community, whether it's a poll, a simple post, or even an email.
Yeah, I think that's a really big thing. You know, I mean, we talk about that all the time, and you know, we make jokes about it. It's like, well, you can just ask your community things. Like that's something you can do. But
do you ever find that if you just put out a survey online or through social media, that like what percentage of a response do you get like from people who take the time to fill out surveys?
I mean, I think it kind of depends on you know, a lot of factors there, the length of the survey, the way that you're getting it out there. You know, I think that, you know, when you're just putting it out there, especially with this, I think it would be even, you know, if you're really starting from scratch, I don't think you need to have 7, 8 questions. I think you could just be like, so hey, what do you guys think of this? And sort of just like leave it a little bit more like that. I think at least at first, that, you know, you might get 12 different responses, but then there you go, you have 12 things you can work on and start to really flush it out from there.
Right. That's sort of we mirrored the you know, online survey distribution along with these like weekly in-person conversations / where we would hand out surveys. But I was definitely thinking of translating the live event to something like a video hangout. Because I find that people are more responsive when you take the time to talk to them as opposed to just giving them a survey. Although I do like Typeform as a nice way to present survey questions, especially if you're able to distill it down to just like 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah, and I think you kind of made the point too about there's also an ask. You know, I think that you can't always just assume, hey, let me put up a form and ask people to fill it out. You know, you may have to work a little bit harder than that. Ask each person, and I love, you know, well, you know what I mean, right? I mean, as you're building the relationship, say, hey, you know who you want to hear from. Ask them, could you do me a favor, and you know, fill out this form real quick. It'll only take 2 seconds. I know if the only forms I've ever filled out other than buying stuff is because somebody gave me a personal ask and said, hey, I'd really appreciate it. You know, and so I think that's kind of important. Oh, and Dom just pointed out that since him and I were sitting together last time, my lower third has his name on it as well, so that's pretty cool.
Rue works at House of Dom now. So. Yeah,
I'll have to change that in a minute. Yeah, and I like, you know, Rue, I love the idea of a video hangout. You know, something, and this is, yeah, but I mean to get answers from your community, right? And to kind of pick their brains. This is not on adapting technology, but early when Social Media Club was sort of starting to evolve with its new set of board members, they did a weekly hangout for chapters to just come in and ask questions and like be heard, and it was amazing how much got done just over those small video hangouts because you felt like you could just talk and you were going to be listened to versus taking the time to write an email or fill something out. Like, I never filled out any of that crap that they would send us.
I really feel there was a huge need to create this small but curated conversation among professionals who are facing this problem. I mean, what happens in New York is we're saturated with big events where you have to sit for something for 2 hours while somebody talks to an audience, and I think a lot of people feel that that's a waste of time after getting a certain introduction to a topic. They're wondering, where do I go to actually have the next level of conversations about this topic? So we found that by framing it as hey, do you work for a nonprofit? Are you frustrated with the way your community uses software? Come talk to us over samosas and pizza or whatever it is. And meet other people who are also thinking about the same thing. And it was a really great community building strategy for an emerging brand as well, because now we generated a pretty active Facebook group, a Google group, mailing list. I'm looking to engage this community of about 80 people that I met with bigger events. It's just a different approach.
Yeah, that's cool. David, you got anything to add?
No, I think you guys covered it real well. I mean, the big ask is what I would do. I mean, it's as easy as saying, are you guys having any problems using our community? And it's so open that, it's one question, you'll get a bunch of answers, and then you just categorize it and re-ask, right? So you get all your topics, and you find out that people are having a lot of problems posting, and then you say, hey, okay, so you're having problems posting, tell us about that. And eventually you'll get to the bottom of it all.
Yeah. So our second question.
I had something to add to the first question.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm back. My computer shut off on me. The other thing that I wanted to add was when you take the learnings that you look at from yourself and what barriers you had when you started, and then open it up for your members to have a discussion. Like I'm a community leader that I go back and I post to my members, and I try to get from them and learn what are you struggling with, because when I can get that feedback, then I can start doing a blog or a webinar or something to help them learn. Because really it's about the members and what are they struggling with and how can we help to bridge that so that they can get the most out of our communities.
Point.
Am I muted?
No.
Oh, I'm muted.
No, you're great. No, that was great. You made an excellent point.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're good. All right, let's jump into question 2 here. Keep on track. Question number 2 is, how can you help your community ease into your platform during the onboarding? And by this, I'm assuming the question is really in the spirit of onboarding new members to your community. Who's got some thoughts on that?
First I would be doing some user-assisted testing, UAT, if you can do that, because that'll help you find stuff right off the bat. If you just kind of throw some people that you know and trust to the wolves and say, sink or swim, here's the new tech, you're going and you watch them as they do that, you're going to see where they're stumbling and where they're having trouble. And if you can get a broad spectrum of people, I mean, everybody knows people that are pretty tech savvy, and they also know people that are not so tech savvy. So get yourself a mix, have them look at the new technology, ask them if there's anything that they find challenging, or watch and see if there's things that they find challenging, and then go from there. That's probably the easiest way, and that's really before you bring it on to everybody. And then, because they've seen it ahead of time, once you do bring it out to everybody, they can kind of be your champions for it. right? They can say, hey, I use this early, allow them to talk about it. I use this early, and it's pretty cool stuff. You're going to love it when you see it. They can also help support your users going forward, so you don't have to be the main point of contact. They can jump in and answer questions because they've been through it all, and they've kind of know the ropes. They're the wise Jedis at this point, and they can help all the Padawans.
I think user experience is like the first thing I thought about. Like, maybe as far as onboarding new members, maybe take a huge step back. And I mean, I know maybe you won't have control over the entire thing, but as much as you can, figure out like what is their experience like, and how can it be improved? Because I've seen like these community platforms where during the demo I'm just kind of like, whoa, what, like, where do you even click? Like, what is this? Like, it's so overwhelming because it's like people who have been in that sort of system and have been with it as it evolved, those things might have made sense to them, but not the rest of the world. So I think it also has a little bit to do with user interface and the user experience.
Definitely. Yeah, UX is so important. I can't stress that enough. So I echo that.
Yeah.
I think a really good source also is going to your founding members and say, hey, I found this new piece of technology. Would you test it out in a safe place, and then get that feedback? Because they're going to be able to give you insights that, as you were saying, that you may not have looked at or considered.
I think the other thing when you're talking about your founding members and easing people in, like obviously, you have to make sure that you understand the process that everybody's going through. But at the same time, you need to have those founding members or some community all-stars like really on your side as to why you're onboarding or you're easing into maybe a different platform than what they're used to. Because one of the biggest things is if somebody doesn't, somebody might be able to do something, have the skills to, but if they don't want to do it, they're not going to, or they're going to fight against it. So, sort of being able to have that community buy-in, have, people that are sort of saying, hey guys, I know it's different, but it is really easy. You have to trust, you have to trust Rue, you have to trust David, you have to trust them. They know what they're talking about. It sort of, I think it helps in the onboarding and helps ease them into it.
And I think to add to that also is, what is the value for them? What are they going to get out of it? Like a lot of people want the what's in it for me factor.
Absolutely. I'm going to quick bring a conversation in here. This is from Amy. Hey, Amy, thanks for hanging out with us today. Amy's wondering how much the panelists use their behavior data to supplement the conversations with the community. And if I refresh, I think
I do.
So yeah. So David, you said I do when I can get meaningful data. How do you define meaningful? So yeah, let's continue that conversation here.
So meaningful data, like if it's something I can actually track. So if we had a new button somewhere that does something special, and we can go into Google and say, oh yeah, they're actually clicking it, then that's helpful. If you open a new area in the community, usually you don't need tracking to know if it's being used or not. You can usually visually tell. But if you move elements around on your page, change out links, and you want to make sure that it's doing, then some kind of click tracking would work, or using analytics data to do that. But like I said, it's a matter of making sure that it's meaningful. Sometimes you just can't tell from data.
I find it really interesting to think of this dilemma of marketing technology platforms and also educating people how to use them. I mean, a lot of my client work is based off of Facebook strategies, and obviously Facebook has evolved a lot in the past 8 years that I've been consulting on how to use Facebook. But it's really interesting because the technology that's available is really powerful, but maybe only, I would say, like it seems like less than 2% of users actually use that technology or even are aware of it. So I've always wondered, like, why, where is the lag in how Facebook markets their technology versus how the average person uses the platform for entertainment or for, like, random, like, purposes. I don't know how I guess if you're designing the technology, how you would make those decisions.
Yeah, I think sometimes with a lot of these, well, especially something with like Facebook, it just gets to be, sometimes I feel like things are getting developed just to keep the developers busy. you know, you need new features when you're raising that next round of funding, or I don't know. I mean, at some point, do you peel back and say, hey, let's go make something better, and do you have to put every innovation and jam it in some little...
I think that it would explain it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds like it makes sense to me.
I'm going to bring in another question here from Jen. So, hey, Jen, thanks for hanging out with us. Jen asks, has anyone used a welcoming program? Any ideas / insights around that, especially interested in scalability?
I've actually seen communities use welcoming. I think I even think the Community Roundtable has some data that they just recently published on having a welcoming, and it helping with making the community long-term sticky. I personally haven't used it myself. Most of the communities I've run were closed communities, and so the invites are usually very specific. So if I reach out to you, you know about the community and everything, and you know to contact me. So it's not a true, hey, we see you're new, welcome to the community, I'd invite you in, you should check this out, you should check this out. If you have any questions, ask me, because they kind of get that as part of their onboarding. But I have seen it where communities will use other community members to be that welcoming community. So you'll sign up to a site, and maybe a few days later, or sometimes in a few hours later, you'll get a message from another user that says, hey, I see you're new. I'm part of the welcoming committee. We're here to help. If you have any questions, you can ask me, or contact support, whatever you need to do. And I think it does ultimately help with the stickiness of your community, and it gives people a reason to kind of stick around. That way they know immediately, if they have issues or troubles, or there's a couple of people they can go to, or a team of people that they can go to.
In my position at Intellex as a community manager, I look after also a client community, and I do have a program that when new members come, I send them a welcoming email. And then I try to introduce them to other members on the forum, and when people are posting questions, draw the more power users, if you will, into the conversation, so we get people getting to know one another.
Oh, I love that. I love that idea, because that's like one of the trickiest things about online community is, but that's also like the golden nugget of what we do is creating the connections between other people. It's so much the ethos of our work is we're trying to take away the time or the energy that goes into making like physical connections and make it faster. So I'm really curious to know more about these power users. I like that term. Like, how do you identify them?
Well, Intellex is an EHS software company, and so what that means is that we have a lot of IT administrators, and so they're doing a lot of source coding and technical stuff. So what I do is I bring somebody who has a lot of experience with the software and can help a new user do the soft coding or finding out other areas of the application together. And so then what you'll see on our community is this dialogue between a really seasoned tech user and a brand new person. And it's amazing to watch as you're saying, the dynamic.
Right. I mean, that's so important. That's like a really, really key part of learning in today's internet digital world. Everybody knows what's possible, and I think those connections need to be enhanced, definitely.
Absolutely.
Cool. Does anyone else facilitate collaboration in their community? Or I'm really curious about that topic.
Currently, no, but that is the long-term goal, is to help facilitate that. We use we have ideation in place where people can submit ideas and stuff like that, and that offers some collaboration. And then the platform that we're on has some good things for documentation collaboration.
Well, what do you think is the barrier? Is it like a technical platform barrier, or is it a behavioral, cultural thing?
With my community,
Yeah.
I have very few members.
Oh, so it's a size thing.
Yeah, it's a size. Well, it's always a size thing, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I've had communities where it's like a social thing, where people just don't get it, and then I've had projects where collaboration doesn't happen because people are talking on so many different platforms that they're not following each other on one platform. I mean, I know because my job is to follow them on all the platforms, so I'm gathering all this information of how these communities are talking about a particular topic, and I'm thinking, oh, if they were just talking to each other, that would be great. And I guess Facebook kind of allows you to do that, but again, that's not what it's designed to do, so it doesn't always work. People oftentimes are not active on it because it hasn't really met their needs.
I think that the one thing that we really have to think of is that idea of really leading by example. Obviously, we want our community members to really collaborate with each other, but you have to really give them you have to create that fertile soil for those seeds to be able to go. So whether it's showing them how to do it, empowering them to collaborate with you, and then saying, and then after a couple of those success stories, and then, tell those stories of how collaboration actually worked to help the community better. Then sort of spur them on, whether it's just plugging two people together and really being the super facilitator, and then sort of taking yourself out, sort of like training wheels. You're just sort of there for them, but then you sort of take yourself out eventually. I just gave 9 analogies at once, but
I like this
it's that
part. I think it's logical. I follow that. Showing instead of telling, which is to me means creating interaction as opposed to instruction manuals. Empowering is allowing them, listening to what their problems are, and then what I really like is the case study, the storytelling from the case studies as a way to sort of inspire other people to see what they could do.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that for instance, one of the communities that I work with, we just did a pretty big thing where we empowered people to really be a huge part of an activation for the community, a way to be able to say, hey, we want to be able to invite you to really help us tell this story. And so we were really the driving factors, but then we were bringing in members of the community to say, hey, be a big part of this. In the future, is that something that we would be able to then empower them to say, hey, we're not going to be there sort of holding your hand, you're going to be sort of taking the torch a little bit more. So really walking along with them in whatever you're trying to do, and then moving on from there, I think is really big. And then obviously the storytelling, Brew mentions it every single week. It's you have to screenshot the awesome. You have to be able to go back to your bosses to show how your community is being bought in, so that they give you a little bit more leeway, so that your community has more leeway to do even more with that. It's a heavy trickle down effect that you can really you can turn into sort of a flow down if you do a good job at storytelling.
Awesome. I like that insight.
All right. So question number 3 here is, how do you help the established members in your community adapt to new technology? So this I think is a pretty interesting question. I look at it, this scenario of, okay, we're going to switch platforms, or hey, major upgrade coming. What are some thoughts there? Sherry, do you have any experience in this realm?
Well, we're always introducing new technology, and the fact that we work with the technology platforms, so it's changing with every release, and that's kind of the existence of our community, is they're there looking through, trying to figure it out together, helping each other, and innovating on top of it. And it's always good to have that highly documented in those cases, and to just make sure that you're aware of and listening to things that may come up with it that you didn't hear of before. But I think, I don't know, you recently did some live streaming with your community, and that may or may not have been something that they were used to. How did that go for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think it was welcomed. It was a little bit more of a surprise. It's not like, I would say probably the community members themselves. They were already used to using kind of, whether it was Periscope or Meerkat. But I think they were all daring in doing what they did. They at times didn't even know that they were on the live stream or not. They just kept talking on their Periscopes or talking on their Meerkats, and we cut into the studio or back and forth to just really our main focus was keeping the audience engaged who was tuning into the actual live stream. Yeah, so.
One thing to that, Brew, in response to Sherry's question about that, I think that when it comes to your established members, and you can also do this with your new members, but established members love being a part of community, and they love being a part of the story of the growth of the community. The hosts that we had on that broadcast, they kept saying that what we were doing was groundbreaking. What we were doing was making internet history. And I think that that's a big thing with established users is, switches in new technology. The reason that new technology is there is to help the community move forward. You don't do it just to do it. You do it because there's a need and it's going to be better for you. So if you I keep saying storytell, but if you paint that picture to your established community members of, hey guys, this is going to be a turning point. Like when you look back at the history of community, this is of our community, this was a big thing in it, and this is what helped us be able to do this, and this better, so that we can be a better community on the whole. You sort of get the buy-in that way of saying, hey, you have a chance to really be a part of, in the history books of whatever community you're actually in.
Yeah, well, you make it about them, right? So it's not like, hey guys, we're gotta upgrade our technology because these will make our stats better, or it'll do this or that, right? You got to figure out. So I think you have to peel it back. It's all part of the planning process. You know what you want to do with this new technology. Your goal is to get the community to believe that they are they are part of the entire story, right? And they should be, right? So you're asking them, you're prodding them, you're saying, hey, Bill just had this great idea. We should move this icon over here. If you ask the questions of even the smaller changes you need to make from a technology standpoint, eventually, you're going to get lucky and get a lot of the answers, because hopefully the stuff you're upgrading and the stuff you're doing is smart, and that your community should want some of that upgrade anyways, right? And so you bring them along for the whole story. Now they feel like, especially existing community members, they feel like, oh yeah, when that icon moved, oh, I feel awesome because I was the one who suggested that. Or hey, there's this new other portion of our community, and I had a hand in helping mold that, right? Whether they had direct responsibility or not, they're going to be a bigger advocate for the change, and want to bring everyone along. And I always say, Tom Sawyer that shit, and just everyone just feels like this is great. Let's paint this fence. Let's do it. Yeah. And I think it's just a good mindset to have is not to force it upon them, but to make them feel like they're the ones who made the change. So.
Yeah, I agree. And when you're in the early stages of it, you can have that beta group of your super users and whatnot as well, where you can bring them in and have them be a part of it, so that when you launch it to your greater community, you do already have a core group that is experienced what to expect and can kind of help guide them through it.
And that
What
actually goes into your power user. You know, Rue, you were asking about that idea of power users. Here's how you build that list. You want to take somebody from who's just like a normal user or somebody that might have just been sort of hanging around the community for a while. You want to turn them into a power user. Give them the opportunity to do something, to be a part of it. Give them credit for it, and watch how much more they're going to want to work for your community.
Right. I mean, I think that goes back to what we are doing in terms of defining the collaborative revolution. And it's about, I mean, a part of that is giving credit to everybody on the team that makes an idea happen. I mean, I think we live in a world where there's often like the rock star type person, celebrity type person that is the face of a product or an idea. But I think we're shifting more towards the team aspect of that, or like the behind the scenes that really goes into building something. I mean, and it's, as you said, like the feeling of building something, the community participating in designing what they use. I mean, it's a huge theme that's really important to fields like urban planning, but are just really hard to execute in the real world, just because it's hard to bring together people and accurately document what their opinions are. And that's something that these platforms, community platforms, allow us to do.
And I'd take that one step further, and I'd make your community members the rock stars. Like, for example, we have member-to-member presentation webinars with GoToWebinar. And so every month, one community member will present to the community. So that's like our power user of the month. And what I'd like to do is then do a blog about that community member and what happened in that webinar and what did people learn. And really like do an interview about that member so that they say, hey, you know what, look what I did in my community.
Right.
And then I
Great strategy.
It looks like we lost her.
Oh my God, that's a great strategy. I mean, I think that I've tried that as well. I did a project with the music rehearsal studio and built community. We featured songs and music videos by people in the community, and that was huge in helping us create a very authentic brand and make the community members feel like they were getting something of value about participating in the community.
Hi, I'm back.
Oh, yeah, you're back.
I have a second laptop up now, so I'm hoping this won't shut down on me. Thank you for carrying that on. I was going to also say is that what's come out of those webinars, though, interestingly, and this loops back to what you were saying about collaboration, is then members have wanted to start their own subgroups on the topic. So that's really neat because, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because in health and safety, we actually have something called the ISO, the International Standard for Organizations, and now somebody has actually created an ISO group to develop some criteria for the ISO standard. So that's exciting that out of his webinar came this actual member subgroup.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, so webinars is something that I'd like to get your opinion on. What do you think is, I mean, do you still use webinars? Last time I did a webinar was like 2009, and a lot of my work has been about real life experience and live broadcasting. I'm curious to know how the webinar has evolved since 2009.
They can still be really boring.
Yeah.
Isn't today's Hangout on Air yesterday's webinar in a way, right?
Yeah, to me that's what it seems like. The point is to make it more interactive.
Well, I would love to have them do like a Google Hangout and stuff. But my community right now, their comfort level with technology is GoToWebinar. And so it's not about me as the community manager and what I want. It's where's my community at with technology, and then how can I motivate them and persuade them to come with me down the journey to, hey, look at this Google Hangout where we can all interactively talk. Isn't that great? And it's like not one person's PowerPoint up there talking. But
Right.
they're not, and that's one of the reasons I came today, is to hear from other people. How do you get your community to, like, I said to them in a comment I was going to be on Twitter. I got emails back saying, if you're taking our group on Twitter, I'm leaving. Because they didn't understand what I was talking about. And I was like, okay, so
You should just
they're
have a
not-
webinar, and your webinars should just be on Google Hangouts, and it should just be on Twitter.
I mean, that's.
One point that, oh, sorry, go ahead, David.
I was gonna say, I mean, in that situation, people do fear change. I get that, but to say that you're going to be on Twitter and then to assume you're moving the whole thing to Twitter seems very overreactionary. I mean, it sounds like a very scared, so to speak, community. Like, that's extremely fearful, you know. And you know, with something like that, all you can do is say, you know, I'm going on Twitter. You're welcome to follow me. I find it useful. Here's why I find it useful. I'm not pointing a gun to your head and telling you you have to use it, but other people out there with, you know, similar interests to you will use it, and you know, it's just another avenue of learning and knowledge.
Well, and I think it's you know, although Dom was a little bit of a smarty pants the way he said it, I think that there is this idea here of blending these technologies, right? Maybe it's that you do have a simultaneous Twitter chat, you know, while you're doing the webinar, and your split screen, you know, you're having your PowerPoint here and a little column with, you know, like people's live comments, right?
That's
About what's going on.
What you're describing is transmedia, which is you're able to weave a conversation on multiple platforms at once, and it's like you're a DJ, like bringing together all these different parts and including more people in a nonlinear fashion. I think one of the things that I was trying to highlight in terms of promoting this Hangout was I wanted anyone of my friends who is listening here, I wanted them to see value in listening to the ideas and insights that are generated in an improvised conversation that we don't get when you are sitting through a PowerPoint format or a lecture format, or even video learning where it's like somebody recording themselves and trying to be entertaining on YouTube, and you're like, where's the fast forward button? I need to just, I don't care. But I think there really is a lot of learning that comes from the spontaneous interaction that we are doing right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And one other thing. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Drew.
No, go ahead.
I mean, just sort of speaking of that too, and you know, I didn't mean to say it too much like a smart ass, but you know, when you're talking to people, when they say all this stuff, like, I would almost go to your community if they're that adverse to change, and ask them, what are the parts, like what the way we're communicating right now, what don't you like? Because typically, if they're so adverse to change, they may have missed a couple of waves of, you know, like levels of change. Ask them what they don't like, and then obviously what you want to do is you want to find the platform that's going to work best for them, that's going to solve as many problems as you can. So take their own words of saying, I hate it that I can't get to you fast. It takes me X amount of, you know, time to hear back from you. And then spin the next and be like, well, if we were having a conversation here, I would actually get the notification X times faster. And then, you know, it would actually make it a lot easier. Obviously, people are afraid to change all the time with everything, but if you figure out a way to find the silver lining in it, that's speaking directly to the words that have come out of their own mouth, if they decide they want to change then I mean, they're just kind of stubborn, and then you have a different problem on your hands rather than just the technology. But, you know, it's that way, I mean, they're taking their own excuses out of it.
Yeah, that's I'm going to use that one.
The other thing I would say is it's okay to lose people. All right? I mean, it is. Like, if you need to make the shift, be it for financial reasons, be it for whatever reason, but you have to make the shift to, say, a platform, you make the shift. If you lose people, you lose people. But the gains that you might make after, you know, can make up for it. And if you lose everybody, then it's, you know, you've kind of done yourself in, you know. But hopefully you've done enough planning ahead of time to where that wouldn't happen. And do a slow transition if you can. Migrate things over. Make sure that everything they're used to from the old neighborhood is in the new neighborhood. All the data that they have, all the knowledge that they've generated, all of the, if you can do it, all of the reputation they might have earned, if there's some way of doing that, so that they carry that forward, and then it's not so much of a shock. It looks similar, it acts similar, but there's some neat new changes here, and then maybe they won't be so fearful.
It's like the scene at the very end of Captain America, where they, he's much further in the future, and they're trying to make it seem like he's in the same place and the same type of stuff. That's sometimes the length that you have to go to be able to make it. But it's like what David said. Don't be afraid to lose somebody. I had a boss, and I was joking around in the chat, but I had a boss that always used to say, I don't ever fire anybody. They always fire themselves. I'm just sort of one of those types of things that I sort of think of. It's like if the community member really is that adverse and it's just like so set in their ways, it's like they're making the decision themselves. You can't let one person hold back the entire community from growth because they don't want to do a Twitter chat. It's finding that fine line of what is best for the community, and making that judgment call as a professional and as the authority on the source, which is why you're the community manager, to move forward, even if it means pissing a couple of people off.
And I like what you're saying, like use their own words, that when you ask for feedback and they say, well, these are all the things we don't like, then spin it back to them saying, hey, guess what? I found out that if we're using this will fix these issues.
You can also throw it at them if they don't say anything, and then suddenly you make the changes and they're all up in arms about it. You can say, look, we tried to communicate with you. I wouldn't do this publicly. I'd maybe do it one-on-one and say, we tried to be as upfront as possible and let you know that these changes were coming. You had plenty of opportunity to let us know. Now that we're here and it's the way it is, what can I do to help ease you into this now that it's here? Is there any special training you need, some one-on-one time? Whenever in any of my community, if somebody says I need help, I would drop everything and help them. Use the platform if that's what it is. If it takes a one-on-one phone call and a hangout or go to a meeting or whatever, I will walk them through it step by step to help them get through it. Because I feel like that's just the best way to do things. If you can get a group of people together with the same issue and do it once instead of 15 times, that's even better. If it's something that other people are going to have problems with, just say, hey, would you be willing to, hold on this until I, see if other people want to do it, and we'll do like a whole group thing, and then maybe we can all learn from each other, and that might work too.
Yeah, and I'd like to bring up, I guess it was Dom's point about finding the success stories and telling them, I think is also like a great supplement to making sure you're available to offer help for anyone who's asking for it. I mean, eventually you want to archive these questions into like the FAQ thing, right? Frequently asked questions, but at the same time, it's like it's interesting because now that the role of a community manager exists, you can make the frequently asked questions process a little bit more personal and interactive.
Great point. All right, so guys, here's the deal. We have 10 minutes left and 3 more questions to get through, which we won't. That's fine. But kind of for Tamara and Rue, out of our 4, 5, and 6, is there one you guys want to talk about the most?
Oh, let's see.
So one of the questions is, what can you do to address skill gaps across your community? That's the first one. The other one is there ever a point when you should give up on implementing a technology? And the other is just like tips you have for helping members adapt. Those are our 3 questions left. We've probably got time for 1.
I'd like to do the one about giving up on technology or not.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I had some ideas.
Yeah. Okay. So we are gonna. So question 5 becomes question number 4. Okay, Twitter people, pay attention. Number 4 is now, is there ever a point when you should give up on implementing a technology? Why or why not?
Never. Always hold strong. You're always right. If you made the decision in the first place, no one can tell you you're wrong.
Well,
Hold
I don't
strong.
know. I would say, well, maybe it's a question of if you really are following the technology changes so fast. I mean, the technology world is like different from day to day. So I think that I would say, yes, the point to give up on pushing a technology is when it's become obsolete. And as professionals in this field, it's sort of up to us to understand what platforms are providing what solutions. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, but the question's really.
It's like all of them are like serving different needs at different paces.
But the question's really more about implementing a new technology. It's not an existing technology. Let's say you do add something into the community, and either it just breaks, it just doesn't work, it's not serving the function, and nobody's using it. Why keep it around? If nobody's using it, if it's not serving a purpose,
Definitely.
get rid of it. It's just bandwidth being taken.
That's why metrics are so important. Like if maybe, I mean, we emphasize growth, especially like viral, rapid growth, a lot. But it's interesting when you start to see activity plateau. I think it's time to research what else is out there.
For the record, I really quick want to say to everybody listening on Twitter, I said that sarcastically. If you don't know me and my personality, that's not true. You can definitely give up on things, and I'm wrong a lot. So there you go. Continue, Tamara, please.
By the way, I do have to quick address something also. I guess I said Twitter people, and although people are kind of jokingly making fun of me about it, I just want to make sure, for the record, no one takes offense. Didn't mean like, hey, you guys. So we're all together in this. I was just trying to address two parties on two different screens, which is why it felt a little.
And it's funny because I mentioned Captain America, and now people are asking on Twitter whether with the Captain America Civil War, whether Iron Man or Captain America would be a better community manager. Now we have to wonder if Hangout people or Twitter people are better community managers. So
I do both, so I'm good either way. But
like we're on this
I was
together.
gonna say, Dom, your point about I know you were using sarcasm, but I've said that a million times that sometimes taking an extreme stance will really generate a good conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Hashtag devil's advocate.
I support what Dave said. Look at whether or not is it bringing value to the community, to your members. If it's not bringing value, then yeah, reassess whether or not you need it. And if it is bringing value but they're not using it, then how can you, is it a belief thing? Is it an awareness? Is it a knowledge? What is the barrier for them feeling comfortable or wanting to use it?
Right. It's interesting because even knowing what metrics to define can be difficult. I mean, when you're using online platforms that that allow you to like or comment, or you're just measuring impressions, it doesn't always translate to a real life community action. And I think I always find it interesting to sort of merge insights that I'm gaining as a real human being versus things that I'm able to track in the online world. But I think again that's what makes this work so interesting, is finding the bridge. And that's why, again, even just if you don't, just any kind of metrics tracking is important because at least you have something to refer back to. It's all an experiment.
And I mean, the question goes to new technology, and it's funny because I talk about GoToWebinar, which for my members is new technology, but then when you're talking about your members, Google Hangout and stuff is what you guys are using. So you're light years away from where my community is willing to be and where I'd like my community to be. But I'm not going to give up on Google Hangout. I'm just going to figure out, okay, so how do I get them to move from GoToWebinar to Google Hangout? And even if it takes 6 months, it's going to be a journey.
You know what you could always do too is, and this is just the first thought that came through my head. Like people didn't just go from GoToWebinar to Google Hangout. Like Brew made that comment earlier, like how it was, the Google Hangout is the past GoToWebinar. There was a couple of ideations and different things in between there. So like take a look historically at what the progression was and follow along with just what that was overall. Like why did people end up moving there, and then sort of follow that along, even if it is maybe 2 or 3, things on there that aren't the best technology. Maybe you can start to move people through that progression.
I also heard some new platforms that are allowing community managers to demonstrate the power of this sort of like video chat. I recently came across Immerse, which I guess in a way allows you to stage or curate your own like show like this and then broadcast it in a way that's like introducing the idea of learning through video chat and dialogue. So it sort of really designs that experience. It's a very new platform. I've kind of played around with it. I think it's still wonky, but again, it's like interesting to see what else is out there. I also really like the technology behind Appear.in. It's so seamless. I think that's the future. It's just so easy to use.
And it was called Immerse, you said?
Immerse, yeah. Like
Immerse.
IMMERS.
Oh, that's cool. Well, it reminds me of even just early on at BTC Revolutions, we used GoToMeeting for everything, right? And then eventually we sort of started to encourage people to turn on their webcams. And then eventually, we said, hey, could we try? We actually did like a simultaneous Google Hangout and GoToMeeting together. And then eventually everyone, we ported over to the Google Hangout. And then eventually, instead of chatting inside, because we had to bring an Uber conference because we grew past our 15 seats, now we have a simultaneous Twitter chat during our company meeting so that if you have to dial in, you're not missing out on any kind of inside jokes or whatever, right? So I think it's just about but that took about 3 years of little tiny steps to get everybody over and comfortable and everything else. So yeah, baby steps. All right, guys, we are out of time. This has been awesome, and I only say awesome one more time for the awesome counter that I see in the Twitter stream. And I'm not sure what count it is, but that's just a little inside joke. That's actually it's not an inside joke; it's a community joke, because we happen to use the word awesome on the show a lot. So someone made a Twitter bot to count it. So that's about it, guys. What do we have for you? First of all, thank you, Rue and Tamara and David, for hanging out with us and dropping some knowledge bombs. That was great. And what do we got next week, Sherry? Or is your internet?
We don't actually know yet. No, my internet's working, but we don't actually know yet. So head over to mycmgr.com/participate and hit us up.
All right, awesome. So help us make the show next week, guys. Help us make it. So have a great weekend. Enjoy. And, yeah, see you next week. Bye.
Ciao.
Thanks, everybody.